Hello everybody, welcome to episode 169 of Show For You, where today we'll be going over Itachi's story, Daylight. So, as you can see on the cover here, you have Itachi in his Anbu uniform. Got the authors, obviously, Kishimoto and Takashi Yano. And you got it back with a brief description. Got, which we call Itachi on the spawn. And then you have the story. This is a 165-page little novella about Itachi's story. So we start off with Itachi at age 4 when Fugaku, his father, takes him out to a battlefield that is a battle within the Third Great Ninja War. And we see as he takes him out here and he's like, this is war. He explains to him what war is, and we see as Itachi memorizes this for the rest of his life. He is destroyed by what he sees here, and he never wants to see it again. He wants to destroy war. From this point, we see is a values instilled within him to obliterate warfare and to make a world of true peace. And so then we see as this progresses, and then ultimately the next big major event we see is the attack of the Nine Tails, Kurama. And we see as Itachi kind of going through this with the eyes of his childlike eyes, and we see as the Uchihas are relegated to defending the Konoha and defending the area because they are actually accused of having brought in Kurama, because the Sharingan is the only thing which can control Kurama or the Nine Tails, and therefore they have suspicion under them, so they are left to remain within Konoha rather than actually going out and helping fight the Nine Tails. And so, also I forgot to mention, but after the end of the Third Great Ninja War, we actually just see as Hiruzen steps down and ultimately Minato is established as the Hokage, but then we get to see the Nine Tails attack, and obviously Minato ends up dying there along with, oh my gosh, but I forget Naruto's mom, Kushina? Yeah, Kushina. Yeah, I don't know why I forgot that. Kushina Uzumaki. But yeah, so we see that, and ultimately, like we see, ultimately on that, a little bit prior, we actually get to see as Sasuke is born, and we see that during the Nine Tails attack, a boulder was actually about to fall on Itachi's mom and little baby Sasuke, but ultimately Itachi, at his very young age, I believe 5 at that time, ends up jumping in the air, imbuing his fist with chakra and busting the boulder. And so after that, we get to see as everything kind of continues to play out in the life of a ninja. We see as Sasuke first goes to the academy. And obviously, Sasuke has been training throughout all of this, and he has made friends with an older boy by the name of Shisui Uchiha, who is obviously a distant relative because all of them in the Uchiha clan are technically related, but not all of them like closely related. But yeah, so Shisui is also a very, prodigious young ninja, and he is a very high quality ninja, just as Itachi is. And we see as Itachi goes into the academy, he utterly excels. He does great on all of his exams. His father recognizes this, and we see as he just blows everyone essentially out of the water. And ultimately, students start to become scared of him because of how powerful he is and how well he performs. So we see as he ends up going through the academy with ease, and he ends up graduating from the academy, I believe. Well, he ends up acquiring the requirements for graduate within less than a year, but ultimately they end up having him graduate like a year after he's been in there. But yeah, so we see this. Ultimately, Itachi ends up graduating. At his graduation, after his graduation, actually, we see as he encounters this shadowy figure by the name of Danzo Shimura. So, if you know anything about Danzo, you know how much of a corrupt individual he is, but he has come and he's starting to spy out young Itachi because Itachi is very prodigious, like I said, and he is a very high-value asset to Danzo in the future. So we see, as this plays out, ultimately Danzo ends up installing ideas within Itachi's mind and all of that. And after this, we see as Fugaku and all of them realize that, Danzo is watching over Itachi, so there is a chance that Itachi can be used to kind of put insert into the higher upper echelon of Konoha. Yeah, so after that, we see as Itachi starts his life off as a genin. We see as he ultimately ends up joining the team of Minazuki Yuki. I'm just going to call him Yuki. And he has his teammates with Shino and Tenma. Now, in his schooling days, he actually had a brief interaction with Tenma before they graduated, where Tenma was ultimately calling him out for being an Uchiha and all of that. And we see as he planned on beating him up, but ultimately we see as Izumi Uchiha, who is kind of, not really a love interest, but like a good friend of Itachi's. And she ultimately ends up scaring him away with her Sharingan. She accessed the Sharingan during the Nine Tails attack in which her father was killed. And now she is dedicated to becoming a ninja because her father was one, and she wants to be like Itachi. So, after this, we see his, like I said, his genin days start to play out. We see that Itachi is able to exemplify himself so much in his crew that they are ultimately given the task of guarding the daimyo's escorts, the daimyo of the Land of Fire, which is essentially the king over the realm which Konoha is within. But yeah, so after this, we see as they ultimately end up guarding the escort. And with that, we see that they're kind of just given as a honorific. It's not really the job because they have the Anbu there and they have the 12 ninja guards of the daimyo as well. But they're given the honorific of being there and being seen as the guards of the daimyo. We see this, and ultimately everything seems to be going fine until it's towards the night portions of the travels. We see as they run into this odd character with an orange mask with black stripes on it. Now, it is not specifically labeled to be him, but we know if you've watched Naruto, this is Obito Uchiha. And here, we see as he ends up putting everyone under Genjutsu besides Tenma and Itachi. Well, I believe Itachi is just able to break Tenma out of it. I believe Tenma was under the Genjutsu at first. But ultimately, we see as Tenma ends up going for Obito. And he ends up punching for him, but obviously it goes through Obito because of Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan ability. And we see it's oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it right now because it's been almost a year, I believe, since I finished up watching Shippuden. But yeah. So we see he punches through him, and then ultimately Obito does not end up taking that lightly. He ends up spearing bro through the body with his fist and ends up throwing Tenma off, killing Tenma. And we see as Itachi is frozen because he can't do anything about this, and he is startled, but he does go for Obito, but ultimately Obito kind of lets him off. And he only lets him off because we see as Obito is able to sense Kakashi is nearby, who obviously he trained with and was friends with. And ultimately this ends up, I guess, warding off Obito, and then Kakashi ends up running into Itachi, where Itachi properly recognizes him as Kakashi. Kakashi's like, how do you know that name? But because he's obviously in his Anbu get up and all of that. But yeah, so that ultimately ends up continuing along, and then we see as Itachi continues to progress, and his Genin captain, Yuki, will not request that, oh my gosh, Itachi take the tuning exams because he feels jealous of him. We see as Danzo knows this because, he spied on everyone. So Danzo ends up bringing up to Hiruzen, the third Hokage, and he's like, yo, we need to specifically recommend that Itachi take the tuning exams because it will be a great way to ward off other villages from attacking us because of how powerful Itachi is and how powerful this very youthful ninja is. And so, ultimately, Hiruzen's like, yep, sure, let's do it. So they end up expressly putting Itachi in the tuning exams by himself. So we see the tuning exams start, and we see the first test. Obviously, Itachi goes by it with flying colors. He actually scores the second highest out of everyone, with the person only beating him in the first part of the exam being Minato Uzumaki Namikaze, who obviously was the fourth Hokage, Naruto's father, and all that good stuff. And the hero of the third Great Ninja War. But yeah, so then after that, we see as the second part of the exam happens, and ultimately here, Itachi ends up using his newly acquired Sharingan, well, not newly acquired, but his Sharingan abilities, because he acquired his Sharingan after seeing Tenma get killed. And so he's been kind of learning how to use it, and he learned how to use it a little bit afterwards, going through being a Genin for a couple more months until he was ultimately recommended to take the tuning exams. And we see here as he ends up using his Sharingan to really ward off people in the Forest of Death as he's trying to acquire the scrolls, because he started off with a Heaven Scroll and he just needed to get an Earth one. So then he's attacked by a 3-team group, because obviously he's by himself. So they believe that this is easy pickings, especially since he's a little kid. But ultimately, he ends up fooling them all with his clone, or it's not clone, but substitution, where he ends up releasing crows rather than just being a log or something. And so we see this, and then ultimately he is able to acquire their scroll by using the Sharingan to scare him off, and then he ends up getting back to the tower, which is the goal of the second part of the exam, and he ends up getting through it, and actually is the fastest to ever have done this part of the exam, and he was by himself. So we see how much of a prodigy Itachi is here in the tuning exams, even though we saw it immensely so prior. Yeah, so then after that, we see as he ends up taking the third part of the exam, where he ends up having to fight this ninja by the name of Nemui. Now, Nemui is a very odd character, because Nemui, how he fights is he falls into sleep and his body fights like that. It's kind of like Rock Lee's Drunken Fist style in a way, but not really, because he has to sleep to fight well. But we see as Itachi is trying to kind of struggling out of bed. He's trying to think it out, and then ultimately he ends up figuring out, yo, I need to wake him up so I can hit him with my Sharingan, get him on some Genjutsu to see him getting killed, so his sleep becomes lighter and lighter each time, so he's unable to remain in sleep for as long. And ultimately he keeps doing this until the kid is broken, essentially. His spirit is completely broken. And he's like, no, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Let me free. So Itachi ends up winning that round. And also, this is not the first time that Itachi has broken someone's ninja spirit, or at least something has broken someone's ninja spirit. Because we see prior that when Tenma was attacked, this broke Shino down, and Shino decided to quit being a ninja. But also because of how powerful Itachi was at such a young age, I guess, disheartened her. But yeah, so after this little charade, we see as Itachi does technically have to go for another round, as mentioned by Danzo and Hiruzen later on, but it ultimately ends up being a farce, and they're like, yeah, Itachi doesn't have to do it anymore, so Itachi ultimately becomes a Chunin. And we see as he actually starts going through, doing a lot more, like, run-through stuff, doing a lot of missions. He's doing them perfectly, flawlessly. And we see as he's kind of taken into the inner circles of the Uchiha, because throughout all this, the Uchiha have been mentioning about how they feel discriminated against, because they've been moved to a select area in the village of Konoha to the very outskirts, because they are Uchiha and they're believed to have brought in the Nine Tails. So they're exiled, essentially, to the outside of the camp, or not camp, but village. And so they've become very jaded about this. They've been planning, I guess, insurrection against Konoha, and now Itachi is allowed within this because he's a Chunin and the son of the head of the military police. So we see as he starts to absorb more and more of this, and he's obviously very against it because he's against war and against hatred and revenge. And so we see as he ultimately ends up starting to voice his opinions, but obviously Fugako's undermen and like people like Yashiro are not really willing to accept this. And even at one point, Itachi almost gets beat up, but he grabs him by the collar, and Fugaku's like, "No, do not do that to my son." And then yeah, so after that, it gets more into the story of Itachi. After this, ultimately Hiruzen's like, not Hiruzen, but Danzo is ultimately, well, not Danzo, but Hiruzen is actually approached by Fugaku, and he's like, okay, I don't want to have my son in the military police, I want to have him in the Anbu, if he's going to do anything. And he's like, I'm coming to you from a stance of an actual ninja and not as a father, because I realize Itachi can execute his skills to the most ability in the Anbu. And ultimately, Hiruzen ends up bringing this to Danzo, and Danzo's loving it, but he can't show that to Hiruzen, because Danzo has been wanting Itachi in the Anbu for a while now. And so ultimately we see that the two elders in the village are obviously kind of against this because Itachi's an Uchiha, but ultimately they end up going through with it. And we see that Danzo is now taking Itachi into the Anbu. So we see as this plays out, and ultimately he ends up bringing Itachi in, and with this he ends up discussing with Itachi this man that he needs him to hunt down. This man is by the name of, what was his name again exactly? It's like Mukai? Where is it at? Yeah, Mukai, there we are. This man is Mukai. He is a member of a distant separate branch of the Hyuga family, so it's unlikely that he has a Byakugan, but it is possible. But yeah, so we see this, and ultimately he's like, yeah, this dude, Mukai is a traitor, and I need you to kill him even though he has a family and all that. And Itachi's like, man, I don't care. I'm here to stop war, so if he has a family, I don't really care. I'm here to stop war and stop hatred and the spread of revenge and violence. So ultimately, we see as after this, Itachi's actually given a break, and everything kind of plays out. He's chilling. We see as he has some brief interactions with Izumi a little bit more, and we see how she ultimately ends up taking him to a tea house where they end up talking and all of that, and she ends up revealing that she in fact wants to be a ninja because she wants to be like Itachi. We see how Shino mentions about how her spirits were broken by Tenma dying and by Itachi being as powerful as he was. But then, ultimately, that ends up playing out. We see as Danzo, in fact, mentioned that Itachi could take one other person with him to kill Mukai. And he ultimately ends up picking Shisui because him and Shisui have been training all these years together. And he's like, that's the only person I can trust. And so we see as he ends up going to Shisui, and Shisui's like, yeah, I'll help you with it. I don't really care. And also we can see as he has not Shisui, but Itachi has some like more brief interactions with Sasuke and all that. And we see as they play hide and seek together because Sasuke is slowly growing. We see he's reached the age of 6. And he is becoming more and more enamored with Itachi each day. So, after this, we end up seeing as ultimately Itachi is sent on a mission with Mukai to the land of crap. That's not the land of sand. The land of the Kazekage. So, like, Gaara's land. What's the name of it? Why can't I remember? Oh my gosh. Well, he's sent there. It's the Sunahagakure, or however you say it. But yeah, so he's ended up sitting there, and was sent there. And so we see as he ends up going there, and this was established by Danzo's own breakings, because there was another training that was supposed to go on this run, but ultimately he got injured by some of Danzo's men, obviously, so Itachi could go on this mission and scope out Mukai. And we see as he ultimately ends up going with Mukai, and they do end up getting caught by the Kazekage's men, and they have to run off. But ultimately, once they get to the border, we get to see as Mukai ends up fighting these people, because he's like, you know what, I want to go for it. So he gets him a sip of sake, smokes him a ciggy, and then goes into fighting. And we see as he ends up throwing down with these people, and he does crazy things. He ends up actually revealing that he has access to the Byakugan, and he ends up using the Trigrams fist and all of that. And Itachi's obviously surprised like this. He's like, I was not expecting that, and now I know me and Shisui are going to have our work cut out for us whenever this comes to worse, and we have to kill this guy. But so they ultimately end up getting back from the mission, and we see as Itachi ends up going to another meeting at Nagano's shrine with the Uchiha, and we see as here they end up revealing their desire to execute a coup d'etat. This is the boiling point. They are ready to fight the Konoha village. And so we also get to see as they all activate their Sharingans and all of that, and we see that, in fact, Fugaku mentions about how the only reason he got Itachi into the Anbu was so that he could act as a conduit between the village and the clan, so that Itachi could spy on the village for the Uchiha, even though we know as of now, if you've watched Naruto and all of that, that it ends up being the reverse way around. Because Itachi sees the Uchiha as warmongers and doesn't see that much. He doesn't see beneath the surface when it comes to the Konoha, and therefore he does not recognize them both to be warmongers. But yeah, so that's where this story ends, and I love it. Itachi is my second favorite character in all of fiction, and obviously this was a great read for me. I loved seeing Itachi, loved to see his dedication to the anti-war sentiments that he holds, and I just really love seeing Itachi get characterized a little more. Like, I know we see a lot of this in the anime, but like, it was just really good to see this. I cannot wait to get the second volume, because I know they'll obviously go through like the execution of the Uchiha clan and all that, but I'm also really ready to see, not really ready to see, but one thing I really enjoyed about this was that it really exemplified why Itachi joined the Akatsuki, because they are essentially anti-war. They are essentially focused towards building up the weak so that everyone stands on equal ground and there's no warfare, because they all have the equal threat of each other and they can't easily overpower another. And we see as Itachi, I love how dedicated he is to his mission. Like, he does not care that he's killing people's will to be ninja. He sees one less ninja, one less chance to fight, therefore I'm doing my job good. And I love just seeing Itachi's dedication to being a ninja. Like, this little novella was great. This is my first actual anime novel I've read. I have Law's Story back there, but I haven't read it yet. And I'm thinking about getting a Purple Haze Feedback, which is a JoJo's novel. But I haven't decided on it yet, because it's like $28, but it's only like 300 pages. But I'll think about it, and I probably will end up getting it, because I know I've been wanting it for a while now. But yeah, that's all it really was for this. I really enjoyed it. I love the art there, even though it's only piece of art. We do have chapter dividers, which have Sharingan art. You can't really see it there, but yeah, you can see the Tomoe there. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend it. It is a great read, especially if you're as massive a fan of Naruto as I am, and of Itachi as I am, because Itachi's my go for real. But yeah, like I said, really enjoyed this. So I would recommend this. Honestly, I'd rate this book, I'd say 7.5 out of 10. It was a really good book, especially for a anime novel. Yeah, that's all there is for Itachi Story Daylight, and that's all I really have for episode 169 of Shelf Review. So, thank you very much for watching.